Hello. So I'm taking this video in a garden. You can see here there's an apple tree and there is gooseberries and there is ripening strawberries. And I thought this was a good location to share about reciprocity, just the abundance that is around me right now, really as a reminder of just what we're receiving all the time as a human being. And I'd love to just start with telling a little story. So I'm reading a book at the moment called Dragon, and it's written by a woman called Emer Cloherty, and she's an Irish woman I was studying with for a short period of time. She taught a course called the Druid's Path before she stopped teaching, but I went to visit her recently and she gave me a copy of a novel she's written, which really is for all ages, including children. And she is an extremely interesting woman. She's the only person I've met in person who has learned everything she's learned about the old ways from her own family line. So she learned everything from her grandmother. And because she was very young, because traditionally it went from the oldest daughter to the youngest son, it was passed that way. But because it skipped a generation, because her father wasn't interested in receiving the teachings, her grandmother had to pass on the teachings to her when she was quite young. So she transmitted a lot through her hair as she was brushing her hair, which she discovered when she was an adult. Because she used to have long hair down to the ground, her grandmother would brush for her. So she teaches the old ways of Ireland, and I was really interested to get this book that she's written because I knew she'd be trying to transmit as much information as she could through that. And it's a story of a man who walks into a valley where the last of the dragon race is living, a female dragon. And I'm only just starting the book, and it's their relationship. And what I know so far is that the man George is aware that the dragon, as the last of her species, is really wounded, and that there's a strong wound between the dragons and the humans, because the humans have killed off the rest of the dragons. And so he is, with a lot of care and a lot of respect, but not with fear, building relationship with her, even though she could incinerate him at any moment, as she reminds him. But there's a scene I just read about in the book where he is tending his vegetables. He's built a little cabin in the valley. There's no one else but him and this dragon. And he's tending his vegetables in the morning, and he has to go down to the lake where the dragon lives in to get buckets of water. And dragons are lithivores, so they eat rocks. And so each time he goes to get a bucket of water from the lake that the dragon inhabits, he brings a little flake of quartz or a little bit of flint and leaves it there each time he goes and gets a bucket of water, because that is not only what she eats, it's some of her favorite things to eat, quartz and flint. It's very tasty for her. So each time he goes and brings a bucket, he leaves this for her. And when she comes out of the lake the next time, she's really surprised to see it. And it brings a lot of questions up for her. Like, who is this person? How does he know what she loves to eat? Where did he find it? All of these. Why is he bringing it to her? So he's bringing this conversation back between him and the dragon, and it's a conversation of seeing her and acknowledging that he's in her space and he's taking of the waters that she lives in. And so there's this reciprocity happening. And really, reciprocity is, one way I think of looking at it is embodied gratitude, that cultural element of gratitude, but it's embodied in that we're enacting an act of reciprocity. And when we do this, we're in a modern context, we're particularly coming back into conversation with the world. We're acknowledging the relationships that are there and how much we receive in those relationships in particular. And we're giving something back in response to that awareness. And there's lots of ways we can do that, of course, and we're probably more familiar with gratitude in our human relations. But how do we give back to everything we're receiving from nature in a conversational, specific way? Because, of course, we can give back by the way we tend to our gardens, for example, and how we can tend to all the beings of nature and the balance of nature in our gardens. But then there's also these specific moments, these ritualistic moments that we can have where we give back. And this is really the invitation. How can you do that in your life? Some ways I've done that in my life is with foraging. I love to forage for wild medicinal plants or wild foods. Um, and I often, I go in and out of practices in my life. That's why they're called practices. Sometimes they're stronger for me, but I've been and sometimes they wane a little, but it's a journey I've been on for quite a long time in my life. And at times I've had a little pouch around my neck that has had corn flour or tobacco, because I learned this practice in the United States, where the native practices there is very much to give back in that way, and those are their sacred plants that are really precious to them. So it's a precious gift to give, something that is valuable for them, that they're giving back as a gift of gratitude in reciprocity for what they're receiving. So I often give something back. So whether it was at a time like that where I had something specific, or I just go out and I often give a little strand of my hair, I take a moment to be in connection. I often stop before I forage and take something and actually let the plants know why I'm coming to take that as well. So it's usually for the health and well-being of myself or me and my community, and then actually giving something back. Another way I've done it a lot in my life is this practice of a little spirit plate. And that's before a meal. I give a tiny little bit, really just a tiny bit, of everything I'm going to eat. I put it on a little plate and I give it to out on the land, to the unseen, to spirit, in recognition for the richness of my life, in recognition of everything that's happening that isn't seen, isn't in the seen world. So that's another practice I've had in my life, and still have, a reciprocity practice. So I want to invite you to do some rituals of reciprocity in your life. How can you give back for what you receive? From life in general, but also really focusing on life as a whole, or the other than human world and everything we receive from that. So, yeah, many blessings on the unfolding conversation for you.